Oh, hello everyone. My name is Philander Barclay, and I am pleased to meet your acquaintance. So, I spent most of my life in Oak Park, gathering other people's photos and memories. I was known as the village historian who told other people's stories and preserved their history. But I'm here, and I'm going to tell you my story. I was born in a small town in southern Illinois in 1878, and in my early childhood, my father ran a drugstore in Cairo. He did okay, but he also had some connections in the Chicago wholesale pharmacy business, and he had heard that Oak Park was going to be the suburban boomtown, doubling its population every decade. So Papa opened up the Golden Lion Drugstore on Marion Street, just north of the railroad station at North Boulevard. It soon became the community center, a place to stop for a few moments, to gossip and to share the latest news. I was just 12 years old when we came here to Oak Park. I met many folks helping Papa in the shop by delivering prescriptions and messages. You see, by having one of the only telephones in the town, messages came to us and I had to spread them on foot. Though I was a newcomer and not a duper like many of you probably are, I began to know about the lives of my neighbors. I didn't really fit in with the other kids my age. You know, the teenage years are a tough time to move to a new place. I gravitated more to the old-timers. They told stories of Oak Park back in its rural times, like it was in my hometown, before so many people started moving in. And eventually, I helped them start their own group. It was called the Borrowed Time Club. We used a wax cylinder in a recorder made by Thomas Edison to record their memories. And can you believe that Edison even sent me a personalized letter praising me? Wow. Well, in the 1890s, before the auto came in, bicycles were all the rage, and I began to work with Mr. Wright Elsom. I learned all about how to repair and rebuild bicycles from Mr. Elsom, who had a shop right around the corner from Pop's drugstore. And then I decided to open up my own bicycle shop when I was just barely out of my teens. So for the next 20 years, people would see me riding my bike. They would say, "Hey, Bicycle Barclay," as I rode throughout the town. And can you believe that they put my beloved 1897 Columbia bike right up here on the wall? Right here at the Oak Park River Forest Historical Society? Oh. Well, unfortunately, I wasn't really the best businessman. And the bike boom of my childhood ended at the age that the automobile began. I was just as likely to fix the tire of a poor boy's bike for free than to charge him for it, even though I was just scraping by at that time. And on top of that, by the time I was 25, I spent every dime and most of my free time on my real passion, photography. I rode this bike all over Oak Park, River Forest, and Forest Park, snapping photos of people and homes. I started putting requests in the Oak Leaves newspaper. I was asking for copies of other people's old family photos for my collection. Well, the people responded. All in all, I photographed or copied about 1,000 images, and I organized them all in albums. I started jotting notes about the movers and the shakers, and the regular Joes like myself. I carefully stored the old glass negatives and the paper prints, and before you know it, they called me village historian, and my photos and stories were printed in the local newspapers. I was a booster of all things Oak Park. But I was also a loner at heart. I never joined a church or a club for myself. I always hovered around the edge of village life, recording, but never fully participating. I was content to stand on the sidelines and watch the human parade go by. But my story, it has a darker side. You see, I had become a drug addict. And in those days, you could obtain morphine, sleeping powders, uppers and downers right over the counter, starting at my pop's own drugstore. My drug abuse led to a slow decline that saw me closing my business, moving in with my sister Luann in just a tiny apartment on Oak Park Avenue at Lake Street. She shared her small teacher's pension with me, and I relied on the charity of friends. But even in my decline, I kept my treasured historical materials together, and I made a will that someday they should be given to the Oak Park Historical Society, which didn't even exist at that time. I decided to end it all, but I could not do it in my beloved Oak Park. I hopped on the L and checked into the Morrison Hotel in the Loop, and I overdosed on barbiturates. I requested that my ashes be scattered in the Forest Home Cemetery, because by the age of 62, I knew more folks buried there than were still alive in Oak Park. During the dark, lonely moments of my life, especially in the end, I was convinced that I was a failure. My bicycle shop failed. I had never married, and many knew of my struggles with drugs. I was embarrassed that I had let down my fellow Oak Parkers, which I had spent the last 50 years of my life with. But my visit today to the Oak Park River Forest Museum has shown me that my passion for history, storytelling, and photography allowed me to make a difference even 80 years after I took my own life. Hundreds of my photos have found their ways into books, calendars, and exhibits, and the walls of local businesses. Homeowners and school children, they come here to learn from my photos and historic notes. And did you know that they even named 3 restaurants for me? Poor Phil's, Philander's, and Barclay's American Grill. Perhaps I wasn't such a flop after all.